Five Rings Podcast, your weekly amateur sports and Olympic sports show with Duane, Rollins, and Kevin Laramee. And now, without further ado, here's Duane Rollins.
This is Duane Rollins, and Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays to all of our Five Rings listeners. We're going to start with some pretty negative stuff, but we're going to end with the positive stuff at the end of the day. But before we do all of that, I'm going to say hello to Kevin Laramee. Kevin, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It's an unfortunate way to start the show in a second, I know, and it was a question of time, really, before it got out, and I'm quite shocked by the time it took for it to become to this point. But it's Christmas in a few days, and it's a Christmas special right after we talk about negative stuff, and we kept the best for last.
Is that fair enough? We live in a hashtag Me Too world, and I think all of us, especially those of us who are checking our privilege, we're white males here, need to be aware of this and need to talk about this stuff bluntly. And the world of gymnastics in both Canada and the United States has been rocked with the sexual misconduct crisis, basically, in the last little while. And we're going to start there and talk a little bit about this. Kevin, do you want to just sort of give the details of this before we go into a little bit more of a deeper conversation?
So, in Gymnastics USA Gymnastics, former doctor.
That's just a couple of things that I could do to stop the hurting.
Automatic play. Here we go. Sorry about that. You know those automatic play websites? I hate them. Anyways, Larry Nasser, ex-doctor of USA Gymnastics, pled guilty in a few different counties for different charges, going from sexual assault to sexual harassment to sexual indecent gestures and proposals to underage girls of gymnastics, and many different cases, many different timelines as well. And in Canada, in Canadian gymnastics, it's former head trainer of Gymnastics Canada, David Brubaker, who was in charge of the 2016 Rio delegation in the world of gymnastics, has been as well faced multiple sex-related charges. Same here, going from sexual indecencies to assault to harassment. So very grim days in the gymnastic world, and it's not just going to be gymnastics. It's going to be, in the next few months and days, it's going to come out as it's going on right now in society in general. And I hope we actually see some of the cases come out to fruition, to light, because the existence of them is for sure. There is more. For sure there is more in all different sports. And I hope that the trend that's going in the movie industry and the society in general, it took a while before it happens in sport, and I always wondered why. And when you have the case of Michaela Maroney, it might explain a bit why. She says USA Gymnastics paid for her silence on sexual abuse, and for sure this is not the only case of cover-ups or paying victims to keep their silence, and that is another troubling part of it all for me.
No, for sure. I mean, it's so difficult to sort of come to grips with, but at the same time, we need to as a society, and we're seeing it sort of flood out right now. And I know there are people still out there that are reluctant to accept these things. They're reluctant to believe the victims in these cases. But when you have as much evidence from as much different people coming out, it beggars belief not to believe, right? And the only reason not to is because you just don't want to accept the idea that there's this type of thing out there, and that women that are in vulnerable situations can be easily manipulated, easily taken advantage of by these men that are in powerful situations. And that's the key to this, is that, look, you're a young gymnast in this particular case, and you want to go to the Olympics. This is your dream. And this guy, this creep, is doing this to you. What are you going to do? You don't want to lose your dream. These guys have so much power over them that it's egregious what is happening here. And you just have to say, no, enough. This is not okay. You're basically holding their dreams over their heads. And maybe I was a little creepy with you, but yeah.
It's not just the dreams, Duane. It's all the efforts made for years by that athlete comes into the decision process at that point to report or not, telling themselves, did I sacrifice all those times for this and not go forward? It's a travesty that a person has to be put in this type of thought process. And whenever an authority figure takes advantage of that authority it's for me the entire society, our entire society that failed, and it's the entire trust process that you develop with someone that fails, and that is. So I don't even have words to put it in perspective. It's your entire life that just not just destroyed, but it's broken apart, and I can't even begin to comprehend. But it's still, I've been troubled by this for months now, ever since it started, and I feel so helpless in the situation, and I'm just an onlooker. I can't even begin to imagine being in.
This isn't, we're don't do these things, and it's egregious to me in terms. So go ahead.
No, it's fine now. I was just reconnecting here. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I said, yeah, it's egregious to me, particularly in the world of sport, because I think how many women have been, these women have come forward and great, and these women were at the very elite level, but how many young female athletes have left sport because of this? And forget the Olympic level. Let's think all the way down to a high school level. Like, how many high school athletes have been inappropriately touched or talked to or hit on by a male coach or female coach, for that matter, by someone anyway, taking advantage of the situation they have over them, that have just left sport, that are no longer involved in sport, they no longer love sport because of this, because somebody wants to get their jollies off. Come on, man, that's not okay. It's ridiculous, and it's shameful, and I'm glad that we're having this difficult time right now in society, because it needs to stop, and it needs to stop for decent people on both genders across the board, because it just makes everything icky, and we don't want to be icky anymore.
It's not just a sports conversation either. This is just not a Gymnastics USA and Gymnastics Canada conversation. This is a day-to-day, all our lives, our society, our interaction between each other type of discussion, of stopping everything and thinking for a second of the ways we used to do things. Just when you look at us, I've started to look at old expressions and old things, right? Remember when the expression of your old touchy hunkle, like that's where it all stems from. Like I don't even know how to explain how this situation, and I have nothing to be guilty from, but I actually looked in the mirror and thought about things, how I say things, how I interpret the things, and how we have to have an open mind this time and do something about it. And it starts with all of us, not just let it happen. If you see something, we're all into a position at one point in our lives where we were closely, or at least somewhat in our environment, confronted to this, and we maybe should have done something. At least in the future, we should do something about it.
No, for sure. I mean, we're terrible when it comes to, let's put the extreme stuff on the shelf for a second and just talk about sort of what you were saying there. Just the language, the language we use is terrible to women. The flippant way we use a word like bitchy, the way that there's a term that no one will even think of it as necessarily being sexist. It totally is. You say, like, oh, why you're ragging on me? That's a sexist term. Think about what that means, right? Like, it's the way that we, you'll hear insults, which quote unquote insults in the sports world, where you'll say, instead of Sidney Crosby, they call him Cindy Crosby, right? Because ha ha ha, she's like a woman.
Or the famous ridiculous. Play like a girl, or like a girl expression. But this goes back to the way we were brought up, and it's our job now as future parents or parents to teach our kids better. And that's one point to start, but it doesn't even comprehend. And as society, we cannot, and that goes back to Gymnastics USA and Canada. And it's a shame we're both men, and talking about this and not having a woman's perspective, it was just tough late minute for us to find one. And if you are a woman or not, if you want to talk about this, let us know. sportspodcastnetwork@gmail.com. You are gladly welcome on the show. We need more perspective, more angles, more ways to comprehend this. We need to know more about all the details on both sides of the medal to get an idea. But as a society, we cannot accept to put our kids in this type of situation. It has to stop. it has to stop. I don't know how. I don't know how you can vet for coaches, vet for behaviors that even haven't occurred yet and going to happen in years. I don't know what's the secret and how to stop, but it needs to.
Well, you call it out. That's how it's done. I mean, let's go. This is kind of the last hill, but it's a hill that's way too late for us to go and die on. You think about homophobia, and how that's just not even accepted anymore. There are certain words that we just don't use anymore. That when I was a kid, back in the 80s, that were pretty common. It was pretty common in the playground back in the 80s to say
10 years ago. 10 years ago it was common. Okay, sorry, we're talking over each other here. We're having trouble with the connection. Duane, just quickly what I was saying, it's a recent success as a society that we were able to eliminate that F word from our vocabulary regarding to homophobia, and I think we should be easily encouraged to do more with that same blueprint.
No, for sure. I mean, look, as a personal choice, I've not used the word bitch in 10 years now. I just won't use it. I refuse to use it as a personal choice of mine, and I encourage others to really think about the language they use and think about the obvious things, the actions they make. And when we're talking about sexual harassment, sexual assault, particularly, we need to, that it goes without saying, but like, think further, think deeper about stuff like that, and think how you react, how you interact with people, the language you use. It all matters, and it all contributes to an environment that ultimately, maybe you aren't doing bad things, but if you are contributing to that environment by using language flippantly, by your attitudes, then you are ultimately a little bit complicit. We all are, to allowing the environment to foster that create the bad people to do bad things. Right?
Yeah, exactly. And yes, we use Gymnastics USA in Canada as a starting point to have that conversation, and we've been wanting to have this conversation for a while and didn't quite know how to. That's the vicious cycle. It's so taboo that we don't even know how to approach it because of the years of cover-ups and the years of just the way we were brought up, and that's unfortunate, and it's not okay. But it's still how TV and how everything surrounding society as a culture, that famous social society consciousness, the way it was ever since I can remember, made us to think the way we are right now. And it's a shame it is this way, because it took us that long to figure it out that it was wrong, and now we have to do better. And we use this as a talking point, but we needed to have this conversation, and it's a tough way just to approach this conversation just without feeling out of the loop, without feeling out of touch, because, well, I guess we are.
Yep. It's unfortunate, but it's a difficult conversation to have, but it's a conversation that needs to be had. And yeah, I don't know if there's much more to say here.
No,
another conversation
the other conversation I was going to say, it's about doping still. I think it's another segue from last week's show, the review of Icarus. And one thing I didn't have a chance to say last week is there's a big controversy brewing in the world of cycling regarding Chris Froome and the use of asthma medication called Salbutamol, which is branded as Ventolin, and other name in pharmaceutical world in the cell department. But this drug, Duane, and just to know the facts, he was caught in the Vuelta a España. He won the Vuelta a España and won the Tour de France last year. But the Vuelta a España, one of the toughest stage of the entire Grand Tour, he was caught with twice the amount legal in his body of salbutamol. And what salbutamol does as a drug, it opens up the small bronchitis, not bronchitis, that's the disease, but bronchial in French. They open themselves up to absorb better, to breathe better, basically, to give you more oxygen per breath, and that helps you a lot in cycling when you're climbing the toughest mountains. And he was caught not just a bit more over the threshold, twice, and he said it's because of a use of an inhaler. And pharmaceutical experts, pharmacists and chemists have been open now to say the amount of salbutamol that he had in his body cannot be explained just by the use of an inhaler, because when you use an inhaler, it goes directly to the bloodstream, to your lung. I mean, it doesn't necessarily go into your bloodstream, which that's how he was caught, and that parts per million was way too high to just be explained by the use of an inhaler. So that drug can be used in pill form or even more intravenously. to affect even better the capacity of breathing better in hard stages. But that is just maybe the smoking gun for Chris Froome, and that brings all his other success into very, very precarious situation where now everything's going to be looked at again, and it's just the start of it. And it's not the first time Team Sky is accused and now been proven of while using asthma medication, and the amount of riders, Duane, in the professional peloton using asthma medication is way, way higher than in the regular population of asthma affected persons with that disease. So that tells you all you need to know.
It reminds me a little bit of
meldonium.
All those elite athletes with heart problems, right?
Yeah, taking meldonium, exactly.
Yeah, it's a very similar thing. And look, it's intuitive exactly what asthma medication would do for a cyclist. It's just going to open your lungs up, basically, so you can breathe better.
Literally. And you can huff and puff a little better and maybe go a little harder on that steep last climb.
Yeah, so look, doping, as we said in last week's show, is you're chasing butterflies, man. Like you're chasing butterflies. I don't know exactly how you catch them because they're butterflies and they're hard to catch. That's a really weird analogy I'm doing there, but I think I just wanted to quote Beyonce. But nonetheless, here we go. Look, I don't know what to say more about doping. We talk about it every show, and it's so distressing because every time you think that maybe you pushed you whack-a-mole. You're familiar with the game whack-a-mole?
Oh yeah.
You pop it up and you whack the head. Yeah, we're playing whack-a-mole. That's what doping is. Like, oh, I got him. No, wait, there's one over there. Oh, I got him. Oh, wait, there's one over there. Oh, yeah, it keeps going. It goes and goes and goes.
It's going to be a choice both you and I will have to envision in the near future. Do we just ignore it? Or we're almost at that point, right? Do we ignore doping and doping talks? Do we focus on sports and results and those narratives? But we can't really do that because ignoring a problem doesn't make it go away. So it's a pretty tough conundrum.
We got to keep chasing those butterflies, man. Don't ignore the song. Keep chasing those butterflies.
Yeah. And don't chase waterfalls because that's a terrible, terrible song. Well, that's a long time ago. All right, enough about negative stuff. Let's take a break and come back with our Christmas special.
Mind if we hear some tunes? Hey, that'll work. So you got any Christmas music? This is Christmas music.
It was December 24th on Hollis Ave at the dark when I seen a man chilling with his dog at the park. I approached him very slowly with my heart full of fear. Looked at his dog, oh my God, a ill reindeer.
And I just wanted to take this opportunity to wish all of our listeners a very happy holiday season from the Two Solitudes and the Five Rings podcast. From both myself and Kevin, we wish you all the best.
And we're back on Five Rings. Duane Rollins and myself, Kevin Laramee. Christmas specials. 3 gifts to Olympics, Olympic athletes, movement countries. Our 3 gifts of the year. Duane, you start.
I'm going to start by giving Becky Scott a time machine so that she can go back and have a moment on the podium that she deserves. I've been thinking about Becky Scott a lot since we watched Icarus last week, and her face when she heard about what the Russian athletes, well, not the athletes so much as the officials were doing. And then that goes back to the fact that this is a woman who crossed the line in 4th place in the day and is now an Olympic champion because the 3 people that won medals that day were all caught as cheaters. I want to give her a time machine so that she can go back, we can get rid of the cheaters, and she can have her moment crossing that line as an Olympic gold medalist. Because as much as we can call her an Olympic champion, at the day, on the moment, she didn't get the interview on TV with Ron McLean up in Canada. If you don't know that, what I'm talking about, they all come back, or Brian Williams, I guess it would have been at the time. She didn't have the national anthem played with the moment just immediately after her lifelong dream had been fulfilled. She got it later. She is an Olympic champion. We need to repeat that as much times as we can, but I want to give her a time machine so that she can go back and have that moment, Kevin.
Well, it's a related subject. I love your segues and how you transition from segment to segment, Duane. I'm going to continue in the same vein, and my gift is an overall gift. I'm giving the Olympic movement as a whole, maybe sport as a whole, moral and ethics for 20 18. It's a lot. It's a pretty big gift. But the way I'm going to phrase it is, it starts with each and single one of us. Every single athlete out there, it starts with you. It starts with you when you go to bed at night. It starts with you in the morning when you look at yourself in your mirror. Do you cross that line, winning at all costs? Is it really winning at all costs? How about you be true to yourself at all costs? And remember that motto. Remember that feeling. Can you go to bed at night feeling good about what you accomplished and not knowing that you cut corners and maybe found a easier way to get things done? That's what I'm giving to every single athlete out there, is the ability to choose to be clean and have moral and ethics regarding their sports going forward.
Can we extend that to our politicians and the world in general too?
I wish.
Yeah, just get the world morality. That's our
and ethics.
Morality and ethics.
And perspective.
The whole damn world.
Oh, that's deep. We're deep today, Duane.
All right, there you go. All right, that's a good gift, Kevin. I'm gonna just no more to say. I'm just gonna jump on to my next gift, and I'm giving PyeongChang peace. I'm asking and hoping for a peaceful 2 weeks at the Winter Olympics with no interference from the North. I hope that the Northern Korea is open to the idea of allowing, South Korea to have its day in the sun and to not try and hijack the Olympic movement for its own political gains. So I am hoping for a peaceful 2 weeks during the PyeongChang Winter Olympics where the world does truly come together. We're not talking about doping. We're not talking about war. We're not talking about hate. We're talking about what the Olympic movement's supposed to be about, which is the desire for excellence, the fulfillment of dreams, and the chasing of those butterflies. I keep talking about butterflies today, but at any rate, waterfalls, butterflies, it doesn't matter. We'll keep doing that. That's what I'm hoping for.
Now,
chasing butterfly. Wait, no.
Waterfalls. That's a terrible song. Now, when my next gift, my next two gifts are kind of related, but one is kind of positive, and the other one I'm going to slam a federation of the world. But I'll start with my positive one because it's gifts. It should be all negative, but I guess it's fitting for 2017 sports world. Eric Gay, I wish him a speedy recovery to make sure he's fine for the PyeongChang Olympics. The downhill skier from Canada has been having a little issues with his back lately after a tough run last few weeks, and this is due to he comes back from injury, and it's due to difficult courses, which we'll talk about in a second on my side. But I wish speedy recovery and luck to Eric Gay, one of the best, if not the best, Canada, skier. He's not a country skier. He's not a cross-country skier. He's a downhill. He's one of the best that Canada's ever produced.
No, and we hope to see him in the Olympics. He's been around for a long time. He's like part of the furniture, like he's part of the wallpaper. He's just synonymous with Canadian skiing. And you think about those great Canadian skiers of the past, what made me fall in love with the sport back in the 80s. This guy's accomplished more than they have. He's been around longer. I guess Steve Preborsky won the World Cup, but nonetheless,
he was world champion.
Good accomplishment.
Like, Eric Gay was world champion. That's the only thing he haven't gotten is that gold medal from the Olympics. But he's won races. He won world champions. It's the best Canada has ever produced. Like when we talk about the crazy Canucks we're talking about from the late 80s, early 90s, well, Eric Gay has surpassed that.
Fair enough. And absolutely. He's maybe the most accomplished Canadian skier of all time, and he doesn't get the recognition that he probably deserves. So let's hope that he can go out, if not on top, because ski racing is a very precarious sport, that you could be the best in the world one day and you can hit the wrong edge the next day and be on your bum. And that's the unfortunate thing about that. And but hopefully he gets his day in the sun there for sure. I am going to give my third and final gift to the women's hockey tournament at PyeongChang. And what I'm going to give you is a greater level of competitiveness and the spotlight that it deserves. The men will not be there, the top men, as we know. And I watched an Olympic tune-up event with the Canadian men the other day on TV, and it's not going to be that pretty as you want to talk about how entertaining this is going to be to learn.
A Spengler Cup team at the Olympics.
Yeah, and it's just going to be trapping and terribleness. This tournament's going to be awful. Don't kid yourself. But so the women in that regard are going to be, I think, should get the attention as the main event in this hockey tournament, and hopefully they do, because these are people that play the game really truly for the love. They do make a little bit of money professionally, but you're talking $15,000 a year type stuff. They do it for the love. They do it because they're passionate about it. Hopefully they have a great tournament. I hope that countries like Finland step up and are pushing the Americans and the Canadians a little bit. Ultimately, I think that we're probably, I know we're going to have an American-Canadian final again, although I guess Sweden upset the cart there one year. But nonetheless, I suspect that we'll do this. And I just hope it's a great event, and it's a great tournament and a great time, and these spectacular athletes get the recognition that they deserve during PyeongChang, with the men taking a side. And, nothing against the men's tournament. I'll watch those games when they're on, but I'm going to be far more pumped up to watch the women's games than to watch, curling and things like that. But let's give the women give them the full attention. They are the main event, and let's hope that people treat it as such.
Now, speaking of main events, one of the main event in every Olympics is alpine skiing, downhill. And not just downhill, but giant slalom and super Gs and giant super Gs and all those events. In the world of skiing over the last decade, it is becoming more and more dangerous. The courses themselves, the amount of risk involved in just going down that hill is increasing exponentially year to year. Courses laid out by the officials and by the International Skiing Association, well, the ISS, has been more difficult over the years as well. And in 2017, we have two very big name deaths that happen in the world of skiing and ski cross and other events. Just David Poisson, the Frenchman, is one of the latest examples. I think it's time we rethink about not just the courses themselves and the amount of risks involved and how to regulate that risks. Athletes will always take part in those risks because it's a part of their DNA to want to win, and they'll do whatever it takes, and that's what makes them different than every single one of us. But I don't think no one deserves to die. And if we look in the Olympic movement over the last decade, because it's a long time, in 2010, remember in Vancouver, the loser from
Georgia.
Georgia, exactly. His name was Nodar Kumaritashvili. It's imprinted in my mind. Well, at least there was some security measures that were changed. There were a few, the way tracks lay out, and be careful of not having posts close to the track. And little things changed with this unfortunate death in 2010. The thing is, in the world of skiing, especially this year, with those deaths, it doesn't change. There's no rethinking of how we should do this. There's no rethinking of just the philosophy of how dangerous should it be, and does it need to be that dangerous to figure out who's the best? Is the best the most brave, or the best the most is fast? The wanting to be the fastest skier really makes you the best, or just the craziest one? Do we really want to reward the craziest one in the risk-taking factor of winning, or you want to reward prowess, skills, and knowledge, and physical abilities, but all mixed together with this, with what skiing should be? How dangerous should we make those courses? Can it still be spectacular if we don't make those courses as difficult and just let them battle it out as who's going to have the most technical and perfect run, and not who's going to be the most brave? And I'm talking about for men and women here. So that's my gift for skiing in the near future, is safer courses for the athletes and perspective for the officials.
Look, when you're talking about this, I'm thinking of auto racing. I'm thinking of how many deaths we used to see back in that sport back, the documentary Senna back then. That was pretty common that someone would die on the course.
Like one or two a year. That's what we have right now in cycling and skiing.
Yeah, and that sport, which is all about risk, really, has managed to get to the point where they put safety regulations in on how the cars are designed, how the tracks are designed, which allow, it's still going to happen occasionally because of the nature of the sport, but it's rare to the point that it's shocking when it happens now. And if that sport, the ultimate risk sport, can do it, and certainly you would think ski racing and downhill ski racing can as well. We're attracted to those sports because of the risk a little bit. Let's be honest with ourselves, but not to that point. Not to the point that you want to see someone dead. That's ridiculous. And obviously, as I said, if auto racing can do it, ski racing can do it.
To the example of David Poisson, He missed a turn, ended up in the safety rail, like the safety nets, but they couldn't catch him. He was going too fast, and he just went over the safety nets and hit a tree and passed away. Like, isn't it as simple as putting higher safety nets? And if it is, it should be done right now. Why not? That's what I'm thinking about, is taking a second to look at what you're doing and admit guilt, admit error, admit mistakes, admit shortcomings. Not because you want to put blame, but because you want to make it safer for the other guy who's going to go down the hill. That's at that point I think we are now, is, yeah, we might have done something wrong in the past. We might not have created safe courses as we should have. Let's do it now then.
Yeah, there's this old saying out there that, at least he died doing what he loved. Well, that's a load of crap.
Stupid.
No one died.
No one.
Yeah.
You're going to think he thinks about this in the last moment? Oh, it's fine. I love what I'm doing. He's like, what did I do? That's what he's thinking just before he hit that tree. And I'm not exactly using this example, but I'm just saying it's not what you think. And it's just, I don't think sports should be a question of life or death to that extreme. Like, yeah, it's no one deserves to die while doing what they love. It's the exact opposite. You shouldn't die doing what you love. You should just be happy about it.
Fair enough. All right. As a final gift to all of our listeners, Kevin, I want to wish them prosperity in 2018, and hopefully that ethics and morality thing that spills off to the rest of the world. So, I think that all of our gifts would be great there, and I hope that the Winter Olympics, which we will have daily shows on, daily shows, God help us, and I will also get to work on producing all those lovely previews that people enjoyed for Rio so much. They're going to start pumping out in January as well. That's going to be PyeongChang 2018 for Kevin and I. 2 months away. My God, It's coming on fast. But
we're on the road to PyeongChang.
We'll be there daily.
We're on the road. We're walking. We're walking toward South Korea. We might not be there in time, but we might. We might. Again,
it's a long walk to Korea.
It's a damn long walk. Yeah, it's a long swim too, but that's something else. We want to thank all the listeners for their support and their contribution to Five Rings over the years. We're back stronger than ever on our way to South Korea. Happy holidays. Happy Hanukkah. I know it just finished, but happy Hanukkah. Happy whatever you celebrate. Festivus for the rest of us. Whatever it is, we wish you happy it. And until, not next week, but 2 weeks from now. So until next year, for Duane Rollins, I am Kevin Laramee, and have a great sports.
You can find the podcast version of all the shows we do on iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play Store, TuneIn Radio, iHeartRadio, and anywhere you get your podcast.